I mean, you can actually see a change in people's faces when that part of them is integrated, when I would say the rage circuit is integrated, because their faces harden. Like they no longer look like wide-eyed children, that they're no longer someone to whom things only happen. They're someone who makes things happen. And there isn't much difference between being dangerous and being indomitable, right? They're the same thing looked at from two different perspectives.
Well, and you also have to look with regards to the shadow ideas, like you have to get in touch with the depths of your anger. Lots of people are resentful about all sorts of things. They're resentful about, women, and they're resentful about men, and they're resentful about the patriarchy, and they're resentful about the left wing, and they're resentful about the right wing, and they're resentful about politicians, and they're resentful about the cataclysmic force of nature and its ability to make people sick and suffer, and they're resentful about their own inadequacies and about their bad parenting, and God, like the list is just bloody endless, and that can make you very, very angry. And that's part of that resentment, and cynical and bitter and dark and full of fantasies about destruction and the desire to bring things down and the wish that everyone else suffered and the desire to shake your fist at God, and all of that's really dark. Jung said, well, the human shadow extends all the way down to hell, and he really meant that, because all the terrible things that people are motivated to do are associated with that shadow domain. And like none of you are saints in any likelihood. You have a terrible capacity for destructiveness, and when you start to consult your resentment and to see how angry you are, it can terrify you to see the depths of that anger. Sometimes that'll manifest itself in very destructive fantasies, which you might not want to become conscious of because they're so brutal, let's say, and so aggressive that you can't even believe that you generate the nice person that's you. It's quite frightening to open that door and see all that, and that also associates you with the entire dark shadow of mankind, right? The satanic element of the human character, but it opens the door to understanding as well, to understanding how people can do terrible things, because you can see yourself as one of the people who can do terrible things. That's really useful, because then maybe you start to be motivated to be the sort of person who wouldn't do terrible things, if you can really come to terms with the fact that that's part and parcel of you. It also is in perverse sense, it's also a discovery of your own strength, though, because, if you have that desire for aggression, that desire for destruction, and that ability to fantasize in that aggressive manner, it also means that you can incorporate some of that into your speech and into your actions, so that you're a lot more immovable, right? And a lot more of a force to contend with. It can give you some respect for yourself when you realize that you're a force of destruction as well as creation, and then you're also more likely to treat yourself with a bit more intelligent caution, to know that part of you is a ticking bomb in some sense that can go off, and so you tread a bit more lightly around yourself, and maybe you encourage people to tread a bit more lightly around you as well, which isn't such a bad thing. And all the people that I really admire, that I know, have a clearly dangerous side, and you don't want to have that activated any more than necessary. But it's also what makes them respectable and strong, especially if they have that under control. So, that's a bit of a dialogue about shadow integration. It's a very challenging undertaking, to pull in that dark side of your character. And that would be all the things that you've repressed or failed to develop as a consequence of trying to be a harmless and, a harmless citizen who looks virtuous on the surface. That's the Jungian persona. And you need that, because everybody needs a mask that they wear in public, like a suit, so that we can tolerate seeing each other on the street. We don't have to look right into our depths every time we interact. We need that persona, but that has to be transcended, and the way to transcend that is to integrate the darker parts of the character. They're very useful. That aggression, that sexual demand, for example, all of that's very difficult to socialize, that competitiveness, but unbelievably useful in terms of force of character if you could manage it.
And I think that is part of the idea of taking the sins of the world onto yourself. It's like you're a human being, so you see what human beings do, that's you. And you might say, well, I'd never do that. It's like, don't be so sure about that. In fact, the probability that you're wrong is extraordinarily high. Well, that's yes, and I mean, it isn't self-evident that the default position is heroism in the face of the advance of evil. In fact, quite the contrary. So it's highly probable that you would be on the side of the weak who are transformed into oppressors. And that's a very terrifying realization if you take it seriously, which you should. And I do believe that if we don't take that with sufficient seriousness, we are not going to survive, because we're too powerful to be naive. You know, and that was something that Jung insisted on, especially after the invention of the hydrogen bomb in particular. It's like, if you're going to play with fire, you better be a master of fire. He flies above everything, sees everything. That's the eye, that's the Egyptian eye. It's outside the structure. It's the thing that moves up and down the structure, and it repairs it. That's what consciousness does in your body. It moves up and down levels of reality, let's say, and alters them.